I figured I would just go on Facebook Live right now because, yes, the piezoelectricity, which is the squeezing, it's an applied mechanized force that squeezes out energy. And with that energy could be, have knowledge, it could have feelings, it could have anxiety, like the same thing as feelings. It could have trauma, whatever. And so what climate change does, it is a type of temperature barometric applied force that if you have enough substance, enough lifelines, if you have something to offer to the world, that with this stress that we're under, that everything that you know would come out. And then if you could make connections that would help the world versus hurt the world. And this is the thing. Everything that people do is helping the world and hurting the world. It's all relative. And there's supposed to be a certain amount of life and a certain amount of death. And so if you play one side or the other, you're helping the system. So it doesn't matter what you do, because whatever you're going to be doing is going to either be something that people think that you're saving the world from, or something that people think that you're hurting the world with. And so it's like you have been programmed. There was no choice in your world. You have been programmed to do a specific thing, whatever it is, because you can't make something out of nothing. You can't. It's really difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. And so we've all been set up to be a certain way and to be perceived in a certain way. And I remember listening to a video the other day, and I was just kind of half asleep. It was about Princess Diana. And she was saying, they really didn't want me for me. They wanted me for my bloodline. They wanted me for my ability to have children. They wanted me to give off a specific look. It wasn't like she was anything special per se. She was just appropriate for that situation. And she was marketable. And of course, she became a little darling. And then a little bit of a rebel, which was a sign of the times at some point. And so, so now, her sons are left. So, I just tell you my world. It doesn't mean you can do my world. It's a fucking brutal world of having to deal with squeezing of information out of you. And some of you are in resistance, and that will only last so long. But I can see now why my husband doesn't really understand where I'm coming from in a lot of ways, because he was raised in this area. He was under the whole high pressure, low pressure all the time. And it was really extreme, because here in Ohio, you had snowstorms and you had hot summers and humid summers, and you had mild springs, and then you had cold winters. And so he was raised in this area, and I was raised in a more mild area. So I didn't have that kind of conditioning. So I'm now getting that conditioning of aggressive applied mechanical stress, through the barometric pressure. And it's squeezing everything that I know about, everything out of me, and also whatever I studied the last 8 years. And so piezoelectricity was what myself and John Oakes a long time ago, and other people, were studying back and forth, because we were studying everything. We were studying mechanical engineering, we were studying physics and engineering, we were studying biological engineering, genetic engineering. And when you study the basics in the context that the system offers you, which should be out there in, the different industries and companies, then when you finally can realize that you have to connect biology and physics and chemistry and biochemistry and even mechanical engineering, they're all connected. Everything is connected. And then you have to figure out, how do you replace like one word that's in one context with another word in another context, and still see the appropriate mechanisms, and almost as if you're explaining the mechanisms to a child who has very limited knowledge. That's why I'm saying children have a hard time, because they don't have enough life force, enough substance, enough experience to withstand what's going on. This pressure is pretty aggressive. It's the squeezing. And so, that's why I wanted to practice like applying the concepts of plumbing, because that's kind of what the Jworld is about, is chipping away at the plugs in your plumbing of your alimentary canal. And when there is a blockage in the pipes and there's overflow, and I'm sure you guys have seen that before, when everything backs up into your sink, backs up into your toilet, into your tub, and you're like, what the hell? And sometimes it could be a branch because the earth moved somewhere underneath. Or it could be just things that your hair caught that then developed a little monster. So, and then developed, all this growth, all this organic material. And so you'd have to know what potentially could have been going on to figure out what kind of physics before you call in a plumber, to flush things through the system in your house. And you better have strong pipes. You better not have a house that's built in 1812 or else I don't know. I don't know if it'll work. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you can, now that you have all this information at your fingertips, study the basic. I studied cells. I studied the basics of cells. I studied the basics of everything, the universe. I even developed my own acronym of image, ion, ionic, and what is it? M? Electrical, magnetism type of thing. So IMA. What's the A stand for? Acids, G gases, E electro, and S, or no, there's no S, just image. E is electro. Okay? And that's DNA and RNA and image. Sometimes it's the reflection of the energy, but there's no DNA or RNA. Or you'd have, a physical person. So sometimes your energy can leave an imprint where it was last before the body just completely gave out. So, studying the basics of everything, studying everything that you think is like, oh, not disbelievable, unbelievable, right? Disbelievable, unbelievable, like ghosts and paranormal activity, orbs. I'm telling you, those dust particles that I was recording yesterday, some of them were going different directions. Like a lot of them are going one direction, as if it was flowing some kind of jet stream, and then you had a couple of them were just going the opposite, like they were like rebelling against the whole system. Okay, so everything, study everything, and the orbs are so interesting. Those are particles, no different than the snow and the rain and the wind and all that, and all the pollen and the pet dander and the human dander. Study everything. Not everything is religious. Religion just gives you kind of like the once over, the storyline behind the science, right? Because science can be done in so many different ways. You can have science for people to die. And that's what the religion's all about. It's like, oh, you're just die someday. And so when you have the science behind the expectation of death, then it's not difficult to develop a storyline behind that and say, Jesus died for your sins, or we haven't found the Savior yet, so you gotta die until we find the Messiah. And so you can have every religion, every spirituality develop a storyline based upon the science of the day. So what happens when the science of the day changes? You don't have to die someday. Oh shit, the storyline around religion might have to change, but again, you're gonna have to be the one to embrace that storyline and handle the pain and suffering. And that's something I can't tell you to do. Because when you're too far gone, when the storyline says it's okay to be decrepit and gelatinous and weigh next to nothing, and then you are, and then the storyline changes and you're right there, decrepit, gelatinous, and weighing next to nothing, that's hard to come back from. You're going to have to stay with the storyline that you were brought into this world with and who's around you. And you got to stay with the people that promote that storyline so you don't feel so bad. Someone like me, yeah, I stay on my own because my storyline is way different than most people. But I've had to do a lot of things differently and fight against the system of people who are like, why are you like this, Jillian? Because I have been closer to death than most of you out there. I've been struggling to fucking live and survive for the last fucking 50 years. So no, I'm not going to go and do the same things y'all are doing. So I got to do things a little bit differently because, yeah, that's kind of the way my world was set up to begin with. All right? So when you're closer to death and you're about my age and you've been struggling and then you finally say, okay, I want my fucking life back, you'll do things, you'll move heaven and earth to save your own fucking life. But when things have been really easy for people, like so easy, school comes easy, friends comes easy, family comes easy, everything comes easy, and then their body starts breaking apart because that's what they were programmed to do in the storyline that they were brought up in. And then they find out the storyline changes. Yeah, that's a little bit difficult to come back from. When you've been so used to pleasure and paradise and how easy it is, no, you're not going to want to go and struggle. There's no fucking way that's going to happen. And so, yeah, sometimes you're left with the storyline that you brought under and you can't come back from that because it'll be too fucking painful. It'll be too flipping painful. When things have been that, and that's why I'm saying, when I'm so used to having my joy, my little moments of joy being just like my little drink here, somebody be like, well, that's nothing. But my joy is to be out there and go get on a plane and travel. That's my joy. If I can't get on a plane and travel and go to a tropical paradise, then I'm an unhappy person. If I can't have that big car or that bauble or that nice pair of clothing or, you know, an outing with people, then I can't be happy. And that's when people have that kind of expectation that happiness has been like, you know, big things, expensive things, and influential things out there, then the little things in life, it's like completely dismissed. And so then they are stuck in the trappings of wealth. And they died for that. They die for their kids, they die for their pets, they die for their lifestyle. And that's the reality of what we're facing right now, is that we have people who don't realize the high voltage atmosphere has completely put so much stress on people's immune systems, and people still want to have the same lifestyle. Now, not all places get the same amount of high voltage or piezoelectric, you know, forces. And I know that. Because believe me, the shit that I've been dealing with, someone in California in my situation, yeah, they'd be gone. Because I'm telling you, the people that are dropping like flies and are getting afflicted are immunocompromised, the elderly, the children, and we're seeing all over, you know, in these died suddenly groups, these kids and people are dropping like flies, dying suddenly. But yeah, I felt what was going on early on in the beginning of the pandemic. And I think actually the pandemic saved my life because I was really skinny back in 2019. Very skinny. And then when the fall of 2019 came around, and I noticed even around Thanksgiving, because we went to a friend's house for Thanksgiving, and I noticed that, yeah, we were buying clothes from them because they were selling, you know, an MLM, and my husband was trying to buy me some clothes, and they were all like size medium or size small, and I noticed that everything was getting bigger on me, like everything. When the pandemic hit, my boobs everything was getting bigger. So everything that I bought would eventually, I couldn't wear any of that shit anymore. So yeah, so the pandemic saved my life, and then I had to eat for that. So I felt the pandemic early on because I was already in tune with the environment. I knew how bad it was going to be. And I knew if I was to keep taking remedies and doing the jilly juice to hold back the evolution, it would eventually redouble its efforts, triple its efforts, and fucking kill me at some point. Because the more the climate changes on a more aggressive basis, and we're heading into that world right now. You've already seen the worst ball. You've already seen a really bad part of it, all the died suddenlies. But if I hadn't just faced the pain, I probably would have been dead July 2022. But that's the thing, is the more you resist change, and change is accelerating, the more whatever's in your system that is under the fucking squeeze of all of this, and you have resistance trying to keep things in that need to come out. Oh, I'm telling you, once that baby rhinoceros is freed up, man, it's going to shred everything in your system. That's the thing what people are dealing with right now and facing, is the system, when it finally has to move, and it may not have the reinforcement to move, things inside people's bodies shred them from the inside. Okay? And that's what I'm trying to get across to you. At some point, when are you going to be like, okay, today's a day. And that's the thing. So people like my husband, he's fucking badass. He was raised in this area. Okay? So he can handle pain. And I tell him, you need to relax and sleep and shit. And shit too, but remember, the upper and the lower immune system. I opened up this and I opened up down there, and that's what's allowing things to leave. So when the environment becomes that aggressive, forcing things out, it has a place to go. And if it doesn't have a place to go, what happens with the antibodies that build up because of who it is you're hanging around with and everything that you're around, when they're not allowed to leave at the level that it is at the growth, that's when you get the cancers, the turbo cancers. That's when you get all the diseases. That's when you get die suddenly. That's when you get the ionic and the covalent bonding happening simultaneously. Because it's still cold outside, and then there's an influential energy causing growth, and you have constriction, you have growth. What happens? It's like a baby saying, okay, it's time to come out, and the person's like, no, it's in resistance, and the baby just still pushes through and destroys and shreds the mother. And that's kind of what's going on right now, is people are experiencing the growth and the constriction happening simultaneously, like magic. Because that's the kind of environment we're in. You have to condition for retention and release, and you have to know what that means. And again, I can't tell you if you can do what I do, but that's the whole thing about piezoelectricity. It is a squeezing effect. There is biological piezoelectricity. And that was the term that was missing of the invisible hand. That was the term that was missing. That's the invisible hand. That's the hidden hand. So you have any kind of opposing force. And then you have the third entity, the Trinity. That's the piezoelectricity. And so when you're in that kind of environment, and then you're working out and all that stuff, then you're applying more stress and more torture to your body. And this is when people who are athletes and really big people in aggressive environments, they don't survive their environment because there's too much stress on their body, and they don't have enough infrastructure to handle when things happen, even when they're not doing things intentionally, because things happen overnight. And so, so whatever you're doing, you were trained to do. I don't know how easy it is for you to jump from one situation to another. Some of you are stuck and locked in, and you hope that you can find a way to transition and still have the same sort of situation, but it'll be very difficult. Because when you start changing, people notice it, and they're used to you being a certain way, and they depend upon you to be a certain way. They're not going to like you changing. That's why I lessen the amount of people to depend on me for my attention. Because as soon as you start changing, you've seen even in the Jworld, when I started changing and evolving, you saw how much resistance I received even by the people next to me. You saw the resistance. And so you don't want to cultivate too many people that if you want to change, if you think that you have what it takes to do my world, and I don't know how you would determine that. Yeah, the main part of it is to teach everyone around you. Don't depend on me to show up for shit. Don't depend on me for anything. Well, then what's the point? That's the thing. You're going to make that fucking choice in your world. And so the ones that have already been freed up from having those kind of societal and even, occupational expectations, those have been freed from that. This is your chance to save your own fucking life. This is your goddamn chance. But again, you could have so many issues that you'd be scared of. Because I thought I was going to go blind last February. Remember, I went to the DMV and I couldn't even read the flipping letters. Everything was double. But the environment was very aggressive back then. I mean, it still is today. But now that I have my driver's license, it won't run out until 2030. Well, there was a reason for that, too. Because the system doesn't need people coming back there every 3 years, especially now with this pandemic. So it's very strategic of the system to say, okay, now you have from 2024? Yeah, to 2030. whatever that is. 6 years, something like that. Okay. Where, you know, you come back to us and you're not gray hair, you're not falling apart. Holy shit, you're a fucking miracle. Right? I have those kind of dreams in my head thinking like, you know, it's like 2030 and right now I'm 50 and I'll be like 55 or so and it's 2030. I'll be like, wow, you look good for 55. Because 55 right now or even 50 is looked at as elderly. I don't consider myself elderly. I don't look elderly. I don't feel elderly. I mean, I know, yeah, when your body is like tight because of the piezoelectric forces going on, because of the change and evolution, and I'm at that point. Yes, some people say, oh, well, you're like grandma. Not necessarily. It's the change. Doesn't mean you have to die from the change, but people have been programmed in their religions that they die from the change. When their change happens, they just give up, fall apart, buy into, oh, it's menopause. Time for me to take my geriatric pills and my Ensure and do this and do that and just embrace death. And that's kind of what the system has taught people in religions when they don't understand science. To embrace death, worship death when you get to a point of change and go pass around your holistic remedies to all your little girls around you so they can embrace the death process too. And that's the religion, even in the spiritual energy healing world. That's the holistic world, is buying into the mainstream. But they've added, you know, all the spiritual guru, you know, whatever drum circle stuff. But it's still religion. You're still buying into the death process. And people say Christmas is satanic. Christmas is like all pagan and idolatry. And it's all, you've been deceived. Ugh. I'm like, oh, geez. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's no different than someone embracing death because they got menopause. That's programming like no other. That's when you have been trained to be so legalistic about stuff that when the environment kicks up a bit and the piezoelectric forces are squeezing, oh, people are getting the scripture squeezed out of them. They're getting the legalistic pound the gavel on the Bible squeezed out of them. And then you see them all over Facebook, legalistic as hell. And that's the thing. So when you've trained your brain to stay in a politics, religion, and science dogmatic belief system, and you have all the players, and you have your confirmation biases, and the system applies the pressure, you will see everything that people have been trained that's being squeezed out of them at this point. And these kids, you know, I mean, whatever they were taught, that's going to get squeezed out of them. And I don't know if they're not going to know how to rebuild themselves. They don't know what are they rebuilding themselves to. These poor kids don't even know what the hell they're going to be good for in the future. You got to have at least an experience or an exposure or something different. But even then, you don't even know what that would look like and mean and what that would, I don't know. There's a lot of strategy when it comes to surviving a society such as this. Because once your parents are gone, then what? Once the parents are gone, what are these kids going to do? Okay, get an apartment with a girlfriend, and then what? Have a baby, and there you go, that's done. That's kind of what these kids are left with when they don't have anything else but family. What do? They're going to go get an apartment, go get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and somebody's going to get pregnant, and there you go. How do you put a different hope in a future for people if they don't even know what kind of future? They haven't read about the future. See, that's the thing. I read about the Georgia Guidestones. I read about the future of sustainability, the green side of it. I'm not in resistance. I know what's coming up. I read some of the doomsday stuff, the Navy maps. I look at even just what other countries have discovered, like new lands underneath, land. Just even new developments in science. And so when these kids go to school and they're just learning the stuff from the past, they're not going to have a type of hope for the future. Not when there's so much shit going on. They're trying to survive their peers, trying to survive their household, that's the thing. So it's someone like me who's 50 or 30 if you've matured pretty quickly in this environment and you're watching my shit and you're seeing what's writing on the wall. When someone's 50 or 30 or 40 and they're not completely encumbered with all these things, or they realize that they can't save their kids, so the kids got to do what they got to do, give them to the system, because eventually you're going to have to, when they're sick, you have to go to a doctor, all right? Maybe you see some hope for yourself to survive even your own kids. That's going to be the difficult, surviving your kids. Because your kids, there's no guarantee that they're going to survive what's going on. So if you are someone like me who sees kind of the writing on the wall and you realize what you got to deal with and you know how aggressive these microbes are, oh shit. Okay. But remember, kids need a lot of stuff. And kids get triggered. If they don't get what they want, kids get deadly, as you saw. Kids get trained with GUNSs and then they get pissed off. Shit, these kids are fucking dangerous. That's what I'm saying. Having kids now, you don't know what it is you're producing. You don't know what it is going to get triggered, especially when we've had so much intolerance. And when you have so much intolerance and they get access to firearms, holy shit. Some kids annihilate. So that's the thing, is these parents be really careful with their children. Not just because of cancer disease and chronic illness. It's also their tolerance level, their trauma level. Somebody breaks up with them, you tell them no, or they feel bad about something, or they see something, or afraid of something. You don't know their tolerance. You don't know what they could be capable of. And that's the scary thing about having kids nowadays and raising kids. We don't know what will trigger them. Okay? And so yeah, I kind of feel bad for the kids out there right now because there's not a lot of hope for them. But with someone my age and a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, if they don't have too many things around them that are taken away from their ability to evolve and change and do whatever, you have a chance to save yourself, but it's fucking painful. I'll tell you, there's no telling what may come up when you finally realize all the different demons that you hold within. And some of them could cause blindness. Some of the demons could cause paralysis. Some of the demons could cause so many things. And that's the thing, when you wake up the demons within that aren't held at bay anymore by the different remedies and the cures, because they're going to be ineffective when climate keeps changing. Do you have a support system to help you get through that? And you have to know intellectually and theoretically what a person must do if they can't. See, when you're paralyzed from the bottom up or the top, I don't know, you won't have what it takes to release those demons down there, definitely. I mean, you might, I don't know. I've never been paralyzed. I've had issues with walking when I was really afflicted, but as far as all out paralysis, yeah, that ooh, you're really gonna have to, employ someone to help you if you know what you have to do, because it's in your colon. You have to feel the pain of push and release. I mean, that's the thing. To give birth to yourself, it's fucking painful. And it requires a lot of strategy and coordination. And you don't know what's lurking in your immune system. That when it does finally come to surface, what's going to be compromised for that temporary moment in time. Or it could be forever. It depends on how much you're willing to fight. Okay? But many people hold specific genes for things that they won't know what will come up until it comes up. See, again, I don't have a medical history, really. Every medical history I have is from since I came here to America, but I don't know who my parents are. So I have no idea what I brought into this world or what I inherited. So everything that I was doing the last 8 years was like a Hail Mary. I was flying blind. Literally, I was flying blind. Some of you have the knowledge. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, that you'll trigger something that's in your genetic line, but sometimes the knowledge of what your parents have and what they died from will be like, I'm not doing your shit, Jillian. And I don't blame you. So sometimes the knowledge can also hamper you and paralyze you from doing anything because you're afraid you might trigger that. And sometimes not having the knowledge of what's in your genetic line is the freedom, because then you just deal with whatever comes up and you're not afraid of what might come up. And so that was, I guess, so there's that, which gave me the freedom to just kind of deal with shit. And as it came up, and I wasn't afraid that someone's going to come up that would do something. I just dealt with things as they came. And so sometimes the ignorance of your own medical history of your family is a gift. Because then you're free to just do what you got to do without the fear of the knowledge of your family genetic line holding you back. So that is a damn awareness. Holy shit. But when you have kids, say you have a disease, say you don't know your family medical history. Okay, you're adopted or something. And then you're experiencing disease in your lifetime. You contract it, whatever. And then you have kids on top of that. What did you just give to your kids? What did you force your kids to inherit? That's the issue the system has, is that people know what they hold inside. They know the kind of shit they hold. They know what their grandparents died from. And then, of course, we know that when you get around people holding specific genes that are interchangeable, and in this environment, genes can grow extremely quickly, metastasize extremely quickly. So you can catch certain things that you never thought you would ever be afflicted with because this environment is so influential. Can you catch paralysis from someone? Potentially, yeah. These kids with weak immune systems, absolutely. You were like, I don't know what happened here. We never had this kind of, my kid experiencing this, and we never had this in our genetic line, and we're... This environment is so influential. People around you are dropping all of their gifts and curses and spells all over you and everyone else. People are picking up all these different diseases. And it is incubating. And that's the scary thing. It's incubating. And it won't come out until all the conditions are right. That's the crazy shit that's going on. So, yeah. But I knew a couple weeks ago when I said, oh my gosh, I beat that virus. And when I did that Facebook reel, when I did that last release of the demons, before I was in on the mend, before the other demon actually came out, I was like, God was pissed at me. Yeah. You know when you released a crazy ass demon. You know you're not going to be 100% better yet. You know it's still sort of a fight. But you'll know when you have been released from that grip of some fucking monster within. And I remember distinctly many times when I was afflicted by something. Like back in July 2022. And I was pulling out those Tootsie Rolls out of my bottom half. And it was just, oh my God. It was literal Tootsie Rolls. And they were huge. Okay? That's what was basically causing things to start shutting down in my system. But my dog saved me. She made me get up and move around so it could get moving. If it wasn't for my dog, I would have been in bed just dead. And so this last couple weeks, my dog came into my dreams and was warning me through me thinking I forgot to feed her. But she came around my dreams twice to warn me. Shit's coming down the pipeline. And shit literally was coming down the pipeline the last couple weeks. And so she's my little angel. She's my angel. She knew I was trying to save her way back when everyone was having a fucking fit over what I was doing. I wanted to keep her alive. She was my freaking dog. And this environment's too aggressive. Too aggressive. She was still alive. I had to put her down because none of us can, my husband can handle it. None of you can handle it. I could barely handle it. And then after we put her down, then I had the stiff neck. And it was on. So, yeah. We're on this, we're experiencing the squeeze right now. And so, regardless of what you were taught, you might have the squeeze put on you, but you have to be able to rebuild after the squeeze releases so much stuff. And that's why the food supply is so important. And if you've already been politicized against the food supply because you think it's poison, that's the religion. That was the religion of death. The holistic world demonizing the food, and the allopathic world demonizing the food with people who are extremely religious already been procreated on. Yeah. That was the system's angel of mercy for people who already have an issue with air, food, and water. If they believe the system that you can't really see, but it's there, is poisoning the food supply, they have someone to blame. They eat only their organic shit, literally. They starve themselves, and then they don't feel any pain and suffering. Because I've seen that even in some of these groups. Like, oh, once I stopped eating processed food and only ate organic food, I feel great. As they're skinnier and skinnier and skinnier and skinnier until one day they don't wake up. The body ate itself alive. And so that's that's the strategy of the system, to humanely put people down, or to gently and humanely put people down, is give them something to believe. Let them be the one to starve themselves. Let them be the one to say, okay, I'm going to have this food that's organic with no real nutritional benefit or anything. They stay away from meat, they stay away from milk, they stay away from cheese and eggs. All they're eating is, I don't know, gluten-free everything, sugar-free everything, salt-free everything. Fuck, I don't know. They become fruitarians. Because you're seeing these guys out there like, oh, I only eat fruit, that's it. Okay. And they're skinny. Or they worked out in the gym for many years, and then now their body's like rebelling against them, so they turn into these fruitarians. Because every food is painful. And that's pretty strategic. And I wouldn't say it's evil. Because I think the system has said that so much reproduction is deadly to not only women, but to the kids. Because what are they inheriting? And what are you bringing in this world for? To suffer? So, I know the system has warned people, and people have been in resistance. Religions have been in resistance. Families have been in resistance. They don't want to change. They've been told well, that's the thing too. They've been told all these stories that were in the absence of science. And so it becomes a story of legalism. And then you see all over Facebook, Christmas is satanic. Yeah. It was meant that way. And so I got lucky. I was given a gift. Doesn't mean I was going to survive. Whatever my mother gave me as a gift of not being indoctrinated into a religion. Whether it's Hebrew or Christianity or Jehovah's Witness or Mormon or anything like that. I was not indoctrinated into a storyline that was so legalistic that I promoted not only having so many babies, but also the destruction of grandma. But the medical system promoted all that. So you had that. If you didn't believe in religion, if you were atheist, you'd believe in all the other storylines. But I was given a gift, and that's why I never chose a religion per se. I can't help what I was raised with. You know, you're given a platform, and then the rest is up to you. But I was given a gift. Again, it doesn't mean I was going to survive it. Because I was given a platform, but everything else was my choice. But I was lucky I was given the tools. So that I do embrace and honor. And that's why I'm not really mad at my parents. I just have nothing. I have no, what kind of relationship would I have with them right now? I had to go through some pretty heavy shit the last couple of years trying to figure out everything. That's why I took the book off the market, because there's no point in selling a perception that probably isn't really true. And if it was true, I don't know how to fucking prove it. So I just walked away from it all. I don't, everybody has to deal with their own shit. Literally. I was given the tools. Here we go. My parents were given the tools. And they have access to information. And if they choose to go their direction, fine. We all made our beds. Now we have to lie in it. Lay in it. So, yeah, there was a reason why we were not supposed, my sister and I and everything, were not supposed to be close. So we had the freedom not to be influenced by family. We had the freedom to develop our own path in life without being pressured into following and relying on someone next to us, except for the partners that we chose. That was a freedom. That was a gift. And for that, I'm thankful. All right, bye.